Howdy, folks, and welcome back. Hope you guys are all blessed and doing okay out there. Well, for today's video, I present to you the history of the Southern Pacific Railway. Now, I'll be honest, guys, I don't know a lot about this particular company, but I know quite a bit. So I'll tell you about what we're going to see. The SP is an interesting railway and one of my favorites, and in this book we'll learn a bit about it, what they are, and what they came to be, and where they are today. So without further ado, let's take a look and see what this book has to offer. And normally, I don't wear sleeves. Well, it's freezing where I'm at right now, so I gotta bundle up a bit. And if you hear any background noise, guys, that's just rain. It is very cold outside today, so I gotta stay warm, and you're gonna hear the rain. So the Southern Pacific Railway began life as part of the Central Pacific during the construction of our first transcontinental railroad. That was one of their big 482 Mohawks they had with the Vanderbilt tender. Table of contents are what you're going to see in the book. And guys, I can't tell if this is censored. This is being filmed with a different phone I've got. Wait, there. Maybe it's centered now. Censored. I meant to say centered. Sorry, guys. There's a blooper for you. A Golden Dream, 1850 to 1861. So as a lot of you may know out there, our first railway was built from 1865 to 1869. Looks like the dream began a bit earlier than that. The SP began life in California and just expanded out westward. Eastward. It would cover several states, including Texas. There's some of the founders of the railway company itself. The Golden Spike, 1862 to 1869. So as I said, the SP played a role in building the Transcontinental Railroad, but it was called the Central Pacific before the name changed. There's that two-wheel driver locomotive, which I do believe is on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. And I'm going to sit down a bit more. It's hard to sit like this. If there is a glare, I do apologize, guys. Here are some of the early trains I had on the Central Pacific. Laying the railroads across the country was quite an interesting and hard task, as you guys can see. It was not easy either, but people did it, and they worked hard. They built a dream, and it became a reality. One of my favorite pictures right here shows a tie gang doing work on the Central Pacific Railway. Governor Leland Stanford was president of the SP and was also present at the Golden Spike ceremony in 1869. And there's a picture of the Golden Spike ceremony right there, with the Central Pacific on the left, and the Union Pacific on the right. So with that, the railways basically would pop up and expand all over the place, and the SP would play a role in that too. The Golden State, 1876 to 1890. 1870 to 1890. Sorry guys, I misread that. So California was basically the birthplace of the SP Railway, if not one of the birthplaces of it. SP trains would run through LA and San Francisco and San Diego. There's a map of it, some early pictures of what it would have looked like. Sorry about starting there, guys. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with this railway itself, but if you guys know anything, drop a comment and let me know what you've learned about the SP or what you do know. So we've got some early documents from the SP Railway Company right there. One of my friends knows a lot about this railway, especially the Texas and New Orleans, which was a subsidiary of the SP. Ah, there's one of the docks where trains were carried by boat. There's that big two-wheeler again. This time it's got a tender, or it might be a different locomotive altogether. I wish I knew more about this railway to tell you guys, folks, but I'm telling you what I do know. The SP would get some very interesting locomotives, and some that were beautifully streamlined. And also, one or two oddballs. There's some more American types right there. I like that one with the driving wheels and the piston rods. Looks nice. The Golden West, 1870 to 1890. And I've got to set up, folks. So the Gold Rush also helped on the railway, but I believe this is the Golden West. The West was a dark, vast territory. And when the SP came along, it became very tamed. In fact, the SP was one of the first railways to expand out west after coming from the west. There's a couple of trolley cars there. Very nice. Ah, there's one of the Climaxes they had. Now, a Climax is a type of geared locomotive, and these are only used for mainly logging and mountain operations. There's a handful left in preservation. What I like is how the steam cylinder looks there at an angle. Pretty cool. Just like the Heislers and the Shays. There's one of the SP depots there. The SP would also run through Texas with two trains, the Sunset Limited and the Sunbeam. The Golden Years, 1890 to 1917. Such famous trains as the Daylight and the San Joaquin Daylight would run through California. Locomotives that pulled those trains were known as GS or Golden State or General Service locomotives. Classed as numbers 1 through 6, and there's only 2 left. The most famous being the 4449, which has ran in numerous excursions across the country. Even come through Dallas at one point in time. Some more early pictures there, as y'all can see. I like that one right there. Nice little passenger train going. Keep in mind too, you can pause this video at any point in time to read this book if you'd like. It's a cool picture there without the steam engines lined up. That's either HQ or one of the main offices they had or a station. The Golden Century, 1917 to 1985. So the SP would hold on for a long time in the 20th century. They were doing great. Of course, the Great Depression, the 2 World Wars, and Vietnam would affect them, along with everybody else. The Cuban Missile Crisis also played a role I forgot to mention too. There's one of their 482s right there. This right here shows the map of expenditure of the Southern Pacific Railway, and there's Texas. The Sunbeam The train I mentioned earlier ran from Dallas to Houston, and the Central Limited would pass through San Antonio. A railroad map of San Francisco. Yes, the SP had a huge presence in San Francisco, just like it did over in Dallas-Fort Worth. If y'all hear vibrations, that's just my boyfriend's cell phone vibrating. He's lying in bed just resting. Boats and ships helped the railroads back then, and they do still to this day. The SP even had emus, it looks like, and electrics. And at one time, they also had a shay or two. Here's some pictures from the daylight itself. Well, the passenger car is there, and one of the GS-class locomotives in the observation car. This was, and still is considered by a lot of people, the most beautiful train in the entire world. Some say it's the Flying Scotsman. I think it's the daylight, to be honest, guys. Here's a fact you may not know about me. I'm colorblind. But I think the SP looks better than the Flying Scotsman. Don't get me wrong. I like European trains. The Flying Scotsman is one of my favorites. But when it comes to beauty, why can I talk? But when it comes to beauty and elegance, I think the daylight wins the prize. Now here's a very interesting engine, folks. This is called a cab forward. So the SP ran a lot of trains through the California mountains in the Sierra Nevada mountain territory. The problem is, though, they had a lot of snow sheds and long tunnels. When you have that in the steam engine, the smoke can get back into the cab and maybe choke the train crew. So what did they do? Well, I think it was either Alco or Baldwin. I forget who built this, or Lima. You can correct me in the comments. They took one of the big articulated engines, and they just flipped it around basically, thus making this the cab forward. There were over 200 built. There's one left in preservation. Number 4294, which is on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. Besides the 4882, there were also smaller articulated cab forwards, like 2662s and 4662s. There's one of the early variations right there. There have also been images of an F-unit cab on the front, which actually looks pretty cool. But like everything, this locomotive had its pros and cons. One good thing was, you had better visibility. No big boiler, you could look right down the tracks. At the same time, though, it was very hot in that cab with the firebox. Well, this time, instead of being in front of you, it was behind you. But still, these things were powerful, and they got the job done. They had a special feeder tube that ran oil from the tender up to the cab. The SP also played its part during the war efforts. Now there's one of their F units, and they're wearing what's known as the Black Widow paint scheme, which is one of my favorites. Another company that would come into play would be the Cotton Belt or St. Louis Southwestern. They were part of the SP for a time as a subsidiary. And they wear the same paint schemes. And there's another one down there. I like to see at the top of the page there with the snow. Looks really nice. So the SP would do great for many, many years, hauling passengers and freight throughout the country, even surviving into the diesel era in the 1990s. But there's one part of history that was really bad for them. At one point in time, the Southern Pacific tried to merge with the Santa Fe, which will be known as the SPSF merger. They started pitting locomotives and freight cars and relabeling everything left and right before it was made official. Unfortunately, the merger did not happen. And SPSF, instead of saying for Southern Pacific Santa Fe, became a joke and stood for shouldn't paint so fast, which they did. The Santa Fe will go on to be part of BNSF, or Burlington Northern Santa Fe, while the SP in the late 90s was bought by the Union Pacific. Thankfully, to this day, you can find some SP locomotives running around still in their paint schemes with Union Pacific patches and numbering. I have seen Dash 9s and a couple of Jeeps, if you can believe that. Huh. They even had train masters. I forgot about that. Now that I like right there. The daylight on the diesel. Beautiful paint scheme. It's probably a Shasta daylight right there. There they are, working through the mountains right there. Pretty cool, actually. So there's stuff about the merger between the SP and the Santa Fe. Some engines even had SP and SF still written on them. And the last one left to hold that paint scheme is in California at the Western Pacific Railroad Museum in Portala. I had the chance and privilege to operate it. Excuse me, folks. I had the chance and privilege to operate it many years ago on a vacation. It was fun. I felt like a kid again. So this is kind of ironic. SP and Santa Fe right there. This is on the Tehachapi Loop in California, which is still a great place to watch trains, I'm told. Have not been out there yet, but someday I hope to see it for myself. There's another timeline of information about the SP and everything else. There's a Scarlet Gray paint scheme right there on the Jeep. The SP also had some commuter operations in California, running train masters with gallery cars. Today, the SP lives on as a legacy railway, part of the Union Pacific, and survives in the form of a heritage unit with a very interesting paint scheme. It was, and still is, one of the best careers we had in the past. It will not be forgotten. If you want to know what the preserved steam is, besides 4294, there is also 4449, which is in Portland, and various pieces of SP locomotives, rolling stock, and passenger cars throughout the country at various museums and operations. So yeah, the SP was and still is a very unique railway. And like I say, guys, I have no clue if this book is censored. I apologize if it's not. Anyway, though, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Remember, always be safe around trains. But most importantly, the good Lord loves all of you. Happy rails, guys, and I'll see y'all next time.